Hey Josh.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. I'm just gonna put headphones on. Joining us. This is really excited. I'm excited just to be able to ask questions and learn tonight because we got a superstar of a guest here on the Titan Speaker Series. So my name is Josh Nichol. I'm here with my role with the Passin Dimes Podcast, and I also coach with Team Canada, mostly on the guy side. But I was lucky enough before getting this role to coach with Sophie and some other great athletes. So I'm really excited for today. So for those of you who don't know, Sophie Bukovec has competed and won a lot of things. So between provincials and nationals on the beach and at the youth level in the club, she's also won an OUA championship with McMaster. Then she went on to play at Long Beach, where she won the Big West Conference. Then she's a three-time national champion with USC in the NCAA. She's also won the Canada Games on the beach. She's a U21 world champion, and it's actually mind-boggling to know that you've already played over 30 times for Canada internationally, and you're still quite young. So quite the resume, but we got to start the interview eventually. But thanks for doing this. This is so exciting. And I guess the most important thing I left out of your bio, you're a Titans coach. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's I feel like you guys, some of the athletes already kind of know my story, but it's going to be nice to be able to divulge into a little bit more of the specifics. And yeah, thanks for having me.
So this is awesome that there's so many athletes on the call. So you and I kind of have a script we're going to follow. We might get off topic, but if anyone wants to leave a question in the chat, we will definitely have some time for some questions at the very end. So for those of you out there in the viewership land, just put it in the chat, or you might have a chance to raise your hand at the end, depending how many questions we can get to. But with that, Sophie, let's start. You got a lot of talented siblings. You come from a pretty athletic family. I'm sure you guys could have started a band or something. Like why volleyball? Why not a band, basketball, soccer? Like what made you fall in love with volleyball?
Yeah, so originally that was kind of my mom's plan, was she wanted us all to be in a band, like the Von Trapp family. But we started out all playing soccer. So my mom is a single mom, 4 kids. It was kind of a way for her to be able to run her errands, have a little bit of time for herself. So she put us all in house league soccer. And then that just kind of advanced. We started playing rep soccer and then provincial team, all 4 of us actually at a really high competitive level. And then we also dabbled in a whole bunch of other sports while we were in school. So my brother kind of gravitated towards basketball, and me, myself, my sister, and my older sister all really loved soccer. And then I got cut from our provincial soccer team around the last stages before they were picking our junior national team. And my older sister looked at me and she was like, "Sophie, you are way too tall for that sport. You need to go pick up volleyball." So I tried out for the Titans volleyball club, and Vito and Margaret saw some potential in this tall Bambi looking thing. And I just kind of never really looked back from there.
Awesome to hear. And one thing you and I were talking about before we came on the air here is I say it, and you don't want to pump your own tires, but I think you definitely did this. You showed a lot of maturity earlier on, and we kind of called it owning your development. So what made you at a certain age want to be that kid? And there's a ton of examples, and I'm sure if there's any club coaches on this call, like the kid who fills up their own water bottle, packs their own bag, never forgets their jersey, never forgets their shoes. Like even with the national team, we had a guy forget to put his orthotics in his shoes and he had to miss a practice. So just don't think when you get to the national team, all of a sudden you're this superstar athlete. That these habits actually start when you're a club athlete. So I'm curious, at what age did you really start thinking about the little details that go into owning your development?
I think it would probably be around 14, is when I started. 14, 15. Because my mom was a single mom, she had to drive all of us to all over the GTA because we were all playing different sports for different club teams. My sister was playing soccer out in Ajax. My brother was playing soccer out in Newmarket. My older sister was playing in Oakville. I was playing in Vaughan for Vaughan, Missouri. So I was really fortunate to have coaches drive from Vaughan, come pick me up, drive me to practice, drive me home, so there was a lot of independence that came with that. My mom had so much to tackle. She was starting her own business. So the last thing that I wanted to do was have to have her worry about, was I packing the right equipment? Was my water bottle filled? Was I doing the right things to excel in my athletics? So I think just kind of being independent and knowing that like you're doing it, your mom's not doing it, your dad's not doing it, your siblings aren't doing it. You're doing it by choice. I just kind of learned to kind of take the development into my own hands at a young age playing soccer. And then that just kind of transferred into volleyball.
And I think another big pillar of owning your development is kind of like the want to learn. So can you kind of just describe to us, whether it was starting with soccer or when it transferred to volleyball, how you had like feedback loops, how you ask coaches questions, how you take feedback that maybe you didn't feel was fair at the time, but you still took it? Like, what are some other things that a young athlete listening tonight can like just put in their journal for now? Maybe this, you kept a journal, but maybe just put in some few notes about like, I really want to own my development. And that means, you know, I gotta be self-reliant with my water bottle, pack my shoes. And I also need to take feedback and be a good teammate. Like, what were all the little things that you focused on throughout your athletic career?
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of going back to the owning of the development, I recognized what my objective was and what my goal was at a really young age. And I think that I was really fortunate to be able to kind of self-reflect and decide what that was going to be. And that just kind of helped kind of pave the path for what that independence kind of looked like. I remember in grade 9, I purposefully fast-tracked academically so that by grade 12 or grade 11, I would have a fourth period spare so that I could travel, you know, to a specific teammate's house, and her parents would then drive me to Burlington where I played for Defensa. So it was kind of having all that lined up early. But in regards to the coaching and taking feedback, I sometimes am a very difficult athlete to be coached. And I think that's because I've had a lot of coaches in my life, and there's certain things that I take away or I respond to better that I now understand as a little bit of an older athlete. And I've just come to realize you have to take what you can from each coach, because each coach is knowledgeable in their own right. And instead of just saying, no, this coach told me this, so that you must be wrong, it's okay, but why? I'm a big why person. I always have to understand why I'm doing something to really truly buy into it. And I think that's the piece that made me a little bit more uncoachable when I was growing up, was I needed to actually understand the processes of things so that, you know, when the coach isn't there, or when I'm watching film or tackling things on my own, that I can really kind of academically and intelligently piece those things together and really like dive into that skill.
And then just to flip it, because you are into your coaching career right now, is there things that you encourage? Because I truly think these are skills. Like there's people who come across it naturally like you do, but I think there's other people that can really learn this behavior and see the value. So as a coach, do you encourage people to be the first one back from water break? Do you encourage people to like shag balls so the next drill is ready on time? Like what are some little things that you look for in athletes or encourage that they can learn these skills? Because it sounds so simple, but if you get really consistent at this stuff, like you can be a high performer in our sport.
Yeah, so it's all of the intangibles that, you know, I as a coach look for. It's who's there shagging balls when I don't have to tell them. It's who's, you know, looking after their teammates and not just filling up their own water, but notice that their teammates' water is empty and take that with them. I can teach you how to play volleyball as a coach. Like that for me is not an issue. I'm confident in my skills as a coach to be able to do that. It's those intangible pieces that, you know, when you get to a certain age, like I just don't want to have to teach athletes how to do. I don't want to have to teach you how to be a good teammate or teach you how to be a high performer. That's something that should already be developed. And in that, I would say ask questions when you're on the court and you're looking for feedback. Not an absurd amount of questions, but good questions and meaningful questions to you, because I am a really big believer in the why component of development. So I think that athletes need to be a little bit more, you know, open and okay to express that why to their coach. Like, don't just take what I'm saying because I'm the coach and I'm supposed to know. Ask me why. And if I don't have an answer for you, I'll one, either find it out for you, or two, we'll have a conversation and I'll figure out, okay, well, why is this not working for you? How can we meet in the middle and compromise?
Yeah, definitely. I think questions are always key no matter what level you're playing at. I think there's a ton of recent studies done on just the value of observational learning. Like when you're not in the drill, where are your eyes? Where's your attention? Like, are you talking to somebody about what happened at school that day? Or are you invested in the drill and kind of seeing maybe what somebody does really well or what somebody is doing that you don't like that you're not going to steal, right? Like where is your energy invested? So I think that's really key for a young athlete too. Like you said, the skills will come, but like where is your energy and attention in a lot of those little things? So
Yeah, absolutely.
With all the stuff you've just listed, I'm curious, how do you stay connected to your goals? Because I think it's easy for a 14-year-old to say, I want to play at university someday, but what are you going to do today or this week to get better at it, right? So when you were setting these high goals and kind of planning your academics around that, how did you find that you stayed connected versus, oh, that's a long-term thing, I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll do that next week. Like, I don't need to accomplish anything today. Like, how do you inch by inch break this down to a daily task?
I think having that long-term goal is really helpful, but it's also kind of scary because it does seem like it's so far away, but then it does catch up to you. So I think setting small, accomplishable goals in the interim is really important. So, okay, this is my long-term objective. What does this month look like? Okay, now what does each week look like? Now, what does my day-to-day routine actually look like? So for me, I've been away from Volleyball Canada for a couple of years. And I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with a coach and periodize what my training schedule is going to look like. So I did it by myself. Like, why do I need a coach to sit down and tell me what I should be doing on a day-to-day or on a week-to-week or on a month-to-month basis? So I think that long-term goal obviously needs to be the forefront of your mind, but those small goals that you accomplish throughout the day and throughout the week and throughout the month, they just kind of fuel you because you're then accomplishing something. And it's those little accomplishments that are like, okay, I'm in a good spot. Like today I did 4 push-ups, next day I'm going to do 5 push-ups. I'm going to do 6 push-ups. It's the little goals that I think as competitors, we like reaching that level. So just kind of breaking things down, I think is really important.
And maybe there isn't a perfect answer to this because I certainly haven't found one, but where do you find the balance between having a growth mindset and knowing that it's not happening yet versus expectations? So I don't know, by the end of this week, you want to be a spin server, but maybe that's going to take 4 weeks. Maybe that's going to take 6 weeks. Like we never really know when it's going to click, right? So how do you be patient with yourself and not be tough on yourself and get frustrated when you pick a big goal? Like you said, whether it's increasing your push-ups or being a spin server, or maybe you want to, I don't know, set 31s if you're a setter. Like how do you have expectations so you're working towards something, but also let yourself off a little bit that things take time and you can still learn and failure is okay to happen?
Yeah, I think, what you said at the last point is the most important, like understanding that if you're failing, then you're actually learning something new and you're challenging yourself. So I definitely learned that later on in my career that not everything is going to come right away. And I was the kind of athlete where it was like, you asked me to do something and within like a day, I could, figure it out for you and figure out how to do it. But as the game progresses and as things become more intricate and smaller and things get harder because they're so detail focused. So, I mean, it's just being okay to just pat yourself on the back and said, okay, today I got 1% better. I'm not 100% there, but that's okay. I figured out how to do this one component of the skill, and that's going to be my accomplishment for the day. It's not going from 0 to 100, but again, breaking things down in each of those things that you want to learn. And just being patient with yourself, I think, is really important. And it was a skill that I didn't develop until like late.
It is a tough balance because you want to get good, like you want to improve, like you want to feel like you're getting it. But I think things tend to take a little bit longer sometimes than we expect. So again, with you being an athlete and a coach now, where would you find the balance of having these goals and then finding a way to work it into practice? Like as a coach, I'm sure the athletes are aware, but they have a practice plan, not only for that practice, but they have a long-term period of what they're planning. So if you approach coach and say, hey, I really want to work on maybe your middle, I want to work on hitting step arounds. Well, maybe that's not in the plan tonight. So how do you find patience of, this is my goal, I want to work on this. Like, when is the time going to come? So how important would be communicating with your coach or setting out like a time period where maybe you're just not focusing on one thing, that you have a few things that when the opportunity comes up, you can really take advantage and work on it?
Yeah, I think communication with athletes and coaches is so important because I don't know what your long-term goals are. I don't know that you want to learn to hit that step. Like, of course, I'm going to teach it, but if that's something that's at the forefront of your mind, like that's a conversation we need to have. First, we need to be able to pass. There are definitely some like fundamental staple things that us as coaches plan. And for all of you athletes, we have plans. So don't think we're just rocking up to practice being like, okay, let's hit some balls. Like there is a means to our madness. But that communication with your coaches is so important because there could be something where you're like, I want to be able to hit a front quick from position 4 off of 1 foot. I saw Tori Gurrell do it at Penn State and I really want to be able to do it. I'm not going to know that unless you tell me that. If that's something that you think is going to help you get recruited, advance you to the next level, you have to, be open with your coaches and tell them that because we just don't know. So not to say we're going to do it right then and there, but we won't forget about it. So.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And one thing that I've always admired about high performers, but you especially, is just the concept of you accomplish something and you're going to enjoy it, but you kind of move on to the next thing. So an example could be, oh, I want to make this club team, but then I want to be a starter, and then I want to make the provincial team, and then I want to make the national team. Like, how have you found just reaching checkpoints where you win Canada Games? That's a huge tournament. That's an awesome accomplishment, but you want to do the next thing, and then you're a world champion and you're doing the next thing, right? So where do you find the balance of taking time to enjoy that you've reached an accomplishment and that's huge and celebrate it, but also keep that roadmap moving, that you're always going to move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I think, again, just having those like long-term objectives, like why are you playing volleyball is super important. I think that that's a really big question to kind of ask yourself. For me, it's, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. Like I want to win for Canada. That's my end objective. So all of those little accomplishments throughout my career always brought me one step closer to that end goal. But even if it's not for you to win a gold medal at the Olympics, you have to understand that once you win something big, amazing, celebrate it that night, have a steak dinner with your family if you eat meat, like go nuts. But you got to wake up the next day and put your pants on one leg at a time and eat breakfast and go to work, and nothing changes really. And I think some people get wrapped up with the kind of celebration of winning a big accomplishment. And don't get me wrong, it's important to celebrate it and realize all the hard work come to fruition, but you got to get back to work. And that's probably going to start the next day, or if not 2 days later. So enjoy it, but life moves on. So don't enjoy it for too long.
And then the flip side of that being, obviously you've accomplished a lot and there's a lot to talk about, but maybe you fall short of a goal. Like maybe you tried out for the provincial team and you didn't make it, or maybe you went to USC and you wanted to be on the ones and they put you on the twos. Like, how do you stay positive and work towards it versus just kind of getting defeated? Because we've all been rejected and it does hurt and it does take some time to recover, but how do you kind of accept it and then work towards the next thing? Because I'm talking about your awesome resume, but let's be honest, you haven't won every game you've ever played, right? So there is some failure and letdown there. So how do you kind of pick yourself up and kind of keep the eyes on the prize and still working towards it, even though maybe somebody told you, you're not going to reach your goal, or maybe you didn't win that semifinal? Like, how do you stay motivated when those times hit?
I'll definitely say that I've lost more than I've won. And I think you become good at losing, not the actual like on court losing, but how you handle losing. And it's humbling. I think that losing is really an important lesson. And I know a lot of coaches will say that, but if you kind of just dwell on the loss and it's an ego hit, you're not actually going to learn from it. So kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, but why did I lose? Like, what are the actual things that I can learn from and take away so that this doesn't happen next time? Not to say you won't lose again, but you won't lose in the same way. And then again, you learn that process of what did I do wrong that time? And then, so on and so forth. So another piece of advice that I will give you athletes is that you're not just volleyball players. A lot of the time when I was younger and I would lose, my whole identity was volleyball. It was, I'm an athlete, I'm a winner, I'm a volleyball player, and I'm a great sister, I'm an awesome friend, I'm a good cook. There's so many other things that you are as a person, and remembering those things will also help when you have those really tough losses, so that your whole identity isn't just into volleyball, that there's so much more to you guys than just the on-court stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. And because we have some younger listeners here tonight, I'm curious if you could just take us through your journey of playing soccer, but then switching to volleyball. But within volleyball, you're playing indoor, you're playing beach, you commit to beach, you go back to indoor. Like you always left room for both. Do they complement each other that much? Like at a certain point, did you have to focus on one or the other? Like, what do you enjoy about both? Like, how did the journey happen? I imagine you started playing indoor first, like most of us do, but when did you learn about beach volleyball and kind of get invested in that?
Yeah, so I started playing indoor first. And then my teammate, Maddie Hills, who became my teammate also at Defensa, she was with me at Etobicoke Titans. She brought me to a Beach Blast tryout for Team Ontario. I think it was like some development thing. And I showed up and I loved it. I loved beach volleyball. The coaches that were there saw potential in me as a beach volleyball player. And I kind of committed to them for the summer. And that's how my beach volleyball first started. So I was playing beach and indoor for about 2 years, I would say. And my indoor coach hated it. He was like, this is affecting your left side approach. All of your technical components and fundamentals are all off. So we don't want you playing beach anymore. And I was like, I don't think that you can tell me that. Like, I'm going to play what I want to play. And if I'm going to be exhausted doing it, I love them both. So I'm going to continue to do both. And then I had my beach coaches on the opposite side telling me that I had to pick beach. So I was constantly being pulled in these two separate directions. And both coaches to me were so knowledgeable. And I respected both of them so much that I didn't know how to make that choice. So finally in my 18U year, I didn't play club volleyball. I was beach only. I was one of two athletes. It was myself and Grant O'Gorman at Downsview for an entire off season. No competition, no other humans. It was literally like me, Grant, and a couple of coaches. And it was grueling. It was so hard going from that team community, lots of people in a gym, lots of support, to just you and like 3 coaches in a dark beach volleyball facility in the middle of winter. So after my 18U year of not playing club, I missed indoor. I missed the competition. I missed the team component. So I reached out to Tim Lukes at McMaster, went and played indoor there. And then I played beach in the summer and just kind of did those different seasons. And then Long Beach State, they were offering me both beach and indoor. I just played indoor there and then went, and now my, heart is on the sand. So I think that they complement each other very well. I think beach definitely complements indoor in terms of ball control. You're touching the ball more, you're more involved in the game when you're playing beach volleyball. So just in terms of like quantity of reps, you're going to get better playing beach volleyball. Not to say that the indoor side doesn't help beach volleyball. As a middle, there are so many times on the beach where you have to be fast up with your arm, or there's a lot of components that transfer into both. So I think you don't have to choose. I hope that nobody is going to be mad at me for saying that. You can do both. You can play soccer, you can play hockey, you can play tennis, whatever you want to do. As long as it makes you happy, I think that there's room for all of it until you have to decide to go to university.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be on another Titans call, and we had Dustin Reed, the head coach of Ryerson, who you know very well. And he mentioned just playing beach doesn't mean you have to be on the circuit and you have to play tournaments every weekend. He's just like, get 4 to 6 friends, pack a lunch and go down to the beach and just play like with yourselves, right? Like it doesn't need to be formal, right? And I think the things you mentioned, that like just the skills overlap and you get more touches and you can still be social on the beach and you don't need a coach. Like I think there's tons of things there. So again, with you kind of being a beach athlete now, like how important are those skills maybe to self-organize and say, hey guys, like we're going to the park, like do you want to come play? Like bring a partner or don't bring a partner, we have enough people. Like how important is that maybe for a kid to experience, like just not having a coach and you got to organize and you got to do it yourself?
So that's actually one of the best learning tools for you. And I think beach volleyball is especially great for that because you're not allowed to have a coach. So you learn to develop kind of those independent characteristics on the court as well. Whereas as indoor, I can tell you where to serve, I can tell you who to serve, I can tell you what plays to run and all those kinds of things. But in beach volleyball, it's you and your partner, and you're making those decisions for yourselves. So your court awareness and your volleyball IQ really improve playing beach volleyball. So even just the organizational piece of grabbing 4 people and heading down to the beach, which court are you going to be at? What time are you going to be there? What is the format going to look like? Are we all going to play together? Is it just going to be me and my partner, right? So there's a lot of good learning opportunities there. And yeah, I just think beach volleyball is such an amazing component. Like I think it just helps indoors so well. So if you guys have the opportunity this summer, please get out on the beach. I'll see you there.
Awesome. And I do want to circle back to a point you brought up there, because I think it matches you owning your development. As you mentioned, when you went back to indoor, you contacted Coach Lukes, where I think some people sometimes think recruiting is, oh, the coach is at the tournament, he sees you play and then he contacts you. But I'll tell you, when I was at George Brown, I always appreciated when an athlete would email me and say, I want to study this program, I'm interested in your team, can you come watch my game on this court at this time? Because now I'm not walking into Rim Park and trying to find you on one of like the 30 courts there. Now I know an athlete, I know a name, like I've made a point to come watch you play, right? So again, with you owning your development, how important was that about your post-secondary career? Because like we mentioned, you played at Mac, you played at Long Beach, you played at USC. Like the coaches weren't always chasing you, right? You had to do a lot of the legwork and kind of make some connections there as well, right?
Yeah, in each of my schools, I kind of was the one to reach out to all of the head coaches. So I reached out to McMaster very late in the game. It was probably going into the summer of my first year of university, so really quite late. And I said, hey, like I know your roster is probably full. I will come to open tryouts, whatever you need from me. Like, I just really want to be a part of your squad. Went to McMaster. And then when I was looking at transferring to the NCAA, I sent out emails to probably 4 or 5 schools that offered both beach and indoor. And I made a terrible recruiting video because that wasn't a thing at the time. And I sent out, my little volleyball resume, and Brian Jimler at Long Beach State was like, we have a full scholarship for you available off of a YouTube video. So I always say that I'm the Justin Bieber of volleyball. And then, I went on my recruiting trip and officially signed there. And same thing when I went to USC, I had to run into Anna Collier at the Huntington AVP and have a very brief conversation with her. So it was me kind of taking the reins on each of those decisions because, coaches there's so many athletes out there. Like, you can't think that you're the only superstar that they're after. Even if you've won X, Y, and Z, there's always somebody who's one-upping you. So just be diligent and go out and chase what you want. And don't be scared to kind of make those connections.
No, this is awesome to hear your journey. And again, just to pick up on a previous conversation you and I have always had is I found it interesting. We talked about when you first played internationally for Canada, there was almost like a sense of belonging because you go on tour and there's these larger than life characters that you grew up and you're watching, and you walk by Kerry Walsh or some other people, or you're playing for money now. Like, how did you eventually get comfortable? Because obviously you had demonstrated the skills to be at that level, but what finally made you settle in and be comfortable every time you kind of climb the ladder and go to the next level?
I think it's just losing and going through the ringer that kind of made me realize like, okay, this sucks. And then being able to actually like push through the barrier and then win one match. So I think experiencing what it was like on tour, all of the things outside of volleyball that also played an impact into what it felt like to be on tour. So it was booking the hotels, making sure that your shuttle was there, eating, like all of these other technical meetings, uniforms. There's so many other components. And then there was actually one specific game that I played in Portugal where my partner at the time hurt her back. It was the second round of the qualification. It was the first side switch, hurt her back. And I pretty much single-handedly like won the match for us. Bumped balls over on two, did absolutely everything in my power. And we ended up winning out of the qualification in that match. And that's when I kind of realized like, okay, I can probably do this. Like, this is a good like marker of like where I need to go. And just being able to be around all of those athletes and really see what the top level was like, it almost made it more real for me versus watching it in film. You always think, oh, they're hitting 100 kilometers an hour and they're doing all of these crazy things. I mean, they are, but they're just doing them at a more proficient rate. It's not that I'm not doing them. It's just they're just doing them better and more often. And I think once you're being immersed in that, that's when you can really tell that you can keep up with them.
And I don't want to take away from the glamour that is being a professional beach volleyball player, because don't get me wrong, it is awesome and we're all lucky to be a part of it. But just circling back to the skills you demonstrated as a youth athlete about kind of being organized and owning it, can you just give us a brief glimpse of like, you're booking your own flights, like you're planning your travel, you're deciding when you're arriving before a tournament, you're deciding what tournaments you even want to play in, right? Like there's not a lot of monitoring going on as far as like, indoor, I get a sense that like this is what time the bus leaves, this is what time breakfast is, and that's awesome, and that's a team unit. Or on the beach, you and your partner are really deciding what event do you want to go to, how are we getting there, when are we getting there. Like just take us through just like the life skills you have to demonstrate before you're even at the tournament outside of volleyball.
Yeah, so it's everything. It's who's your partner, who's your coach, what tournaments are you going to? Again, what does your travel schedule look like? How many days are you getting there before? Do you want to get there 4 days before the tournament or a week? Again, that's going to cost you. What hotel are you staying at? Is it close to the venue? If it's not, what's your transportation look like? Is it a taxi or taxis available? Is there a shuttle from the airport to the hotel? It's having to schedule your like life backwards almost. It's okay, you're playing at this time. What time do you need to warm up? What time do you need to eat? What time do you need to sleep? What time do you need to shower? Everything is just so organized. And then you lose and you're like, okay, well, where am I sleeping? Like we got kicked out of the hotel. Like we don't have any food available to us. What are we eating? What are we sleeping? Should we leave the next day? Do we stay for the rest of the tournament? There's so many unknowns when you're playing. So you just kind of get used to being a little nomad. And you are the most low maintenance people because you just can't be high maintenance when you're playing beach volleyball.
Oh, this is great. I just have a couple more questions before we get to some fan questions. So if you guys want to start thinking, we can get to your questions here in a moment. But you touched on this a little bit, where there's so many layers about the Canadian system where you're an independent athlete. So you organize everything, you train outside of Toronto when you want to, like you have your own coach. So I'm curious because not a lot of athletes could really handle this, where I think just to let the viewers know, doing her master's and she's in Washington. So how do you focus on what you're supposed to accomplish that day versus, I don't know, sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, you start looking around and be like, oh, so-and-so's not doing this or they're not doing their part at work, right? Where you have this trust that Taylor's going to take care of her training, you're going to take care of yours. And when you're together, you're going to be a team again, right? So how are you guys acting independently, but still as a team?
So this has kind of come late in the game for me of understanding this. I've always had kind of the same issues with my partners. And they just kept happening. And so I stopped looking at like, okay, well, what are they doing wrong? And I started looking at myself like, why is this happening to me so often? And I started to realize that I put the same expectation on my partners as I have for myself in terms of commitment. So if my partner wasn't lifting 5 times a week and playing 5 times a week and doing all of the things that I'm doing, they're not as committed as me. And that's not true. And that's something I didn't learn until a couple of years ago where I now have complete trust in my partner that she's doing everything that she feels she needs to do for our team to be the best. I can't dictate that. Only she can dictate that. And if she's not doing what's best for the team, okay, maybe I look elsewhere. But when it comes to Taylor and I, our connection is so good on the court. And I know that when we get together, we're full force. So if that means she needs to finish her master's and live in DC and be with her boyfriend, that for me is like, okay, you're taking care of yourself. I'm taking care of myself by being in the gym. And then when we get on the court, it's seamless. So just taking care of myself. And that's the only person that you kind of can take care of, and not worrying too much about what your teammates are doing or having assumptions about what they should be doing.
And is there a way to find the balance between you're going to support and you're going to trust that they're doing their job, but you're also you're going to challenge each other, you're going to push each other, like, because I think that's what really makes a team well is you're not going to ignore issues, you're going to have tough conversations, you're going to motivate each other. So how do you find the balance of, okay, we're away, but like we're still connecting somehow, and if we're not getting along, like let's talk this thing out. Like how do you find those opportunities to pop up with your partner?
Yeah, I think that we're in a great climate for that right now because we're not able to be with each other. So all of you teammates, you might as well be in different cities. But I think it's just being open and honest as to what you need. And I think that's really important. So don't try to, tell me what you think that I need or you know what I mean? No assumptions. Just be like, hey, Taylor, I need you to commit to 3 trading camps where I can actually be with you in person. And I need to talk to you once a week about nothing, or just kind of set up like boundaries so that they're tangible things that you guys are holding each other accountable to, that's going to better your team, but not dictating what they're doing in their life or their training or things like that. If talking to that person or talking to your teammates is important every day, then talk to your teammates and let them know that that's a thing that you need. Otherwise, they're not going to know. So just being open and having those conversations about what you need, I think, is really, really important.
Awesome. And just this is my last question. So if anybody has any that they want to put in the chat, or you can use the raise your hand function, and we'll let you ask Sophie directly. But as the numbers in Ontario hopefully continue to change, and maybe we're back in the gym very, very soon. I noticed you recently had a training camp and you got to be back on the court. Like how exciting was that just to do the little things, maybe pepper with somebody or do a little bit of gameplay? Like how exciting was it that we've all gone through this break? Like what can some of these athletes look forward to when they get back in the gym? Just the excitement level and just the little things that you really enjoy about our sport.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. I loved being able to just miss it and be back on the court and really like thrive in that competition and make mistakes, but not hold myself, to a too high of a standard because I haven't played in a while. And just, I remember why I love the sport. And I think this is a really nice break for everyone to kind of, when we are able to get back on the court, remember why we actually really love it. But yeah, it was the little things. It was peppering. It was having sand in my ears like 2-3 days later after I've showered. It's all the things you think you don't miss and all of those little things that really make you love the sport so much. And so I'm excited for everyone to kind of experience that. So yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome to hear. And just your joy and energy comes through in that answer. I love it. Where yeah. I find it when our athletes come back from an injury or something, stuff that you take for granted is just so exciting that even just throwing and warming up with your partner is like new and exciting again, right? So,
oh my gosh, so fun.
All right, we have one question coming through, so we'll start with this one. What sort of goals can young athletes set if they aren't aiming to play post-secondary?
Goals that they can set, like in terms of results, or I think that's kind of twofold. It's results based. So if that's, you want to become premier, if you want to, win the provincial championships, or if you just want to have fun, and how does that look like, right? So what does that goal look like? Is it to make a best friend on the team? Is it to make lifelong friends? Because that can happen when you play club. So I think that there's a lot of answers for that. Yeah. Is it just for fitness? Is it because you just want to be active, right? Like there's so many different components to that question. So if you can be a little bit more specific, I would love to be able to give an answer, or if that was good enough, let me know.
Well, we'll let them reply if there is another one, but I just have a small break off from that because I think it is a good question. I've been a part of a few teams. I like playing other sports. I've been like kind of the guy on some teams, and I've been the worst player and just there, right? So I'm wondering, with your experience as a coach and a player, what's the difference between you like having fun and being silly, right? Like, because I think everybody wants to have fun, but then you get to a game and you're not competing, and that's not fun, right? So it's one thing to be silly at practice, but to still make sure that we're we're still competing, we're still reaching, we're trying to do the best, even though we might not be, a world champion like you, right? Like you can still compete at your level. And I think working hard and doing your best is actually more fun than being silly and goofing off with your friends, right? I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, absolutely. So I think especially that we're all athletes, and this is a similar trait for all athletes, is that we love competing, and that part's fun. It's being able to like look across the net and be like, ooh, it's me versus you, and having that like little internal competition. That's where the joy actually comes from. It's not from dancing on the side of the court or gossiping or talking about like whatever you did in school. That to me is not necessarily what athletes deem as fun. The fun is, oh, you hit this ball hard at me, I'm going to hit this one harder. It's having that like internal kind of competition between teammates. And then it just elevates the game for everybody in the gym. So I know that I tell my team, like, that's something that we want to bring to every single practice, is that competitive energy, where if I put you in a warm-up drill or you're peppering with somebody, it's in your head. I might not have explicitly said it, but I'm not going to let the ball drop before that guy. It's those little mini competitions that you create for yourself where that's actually the fun part.
Awesome. And yeah, we do have time for more questions if anybody wants to put those in the chat, because yeah, I think sport's great for that, where yeah, fun is competing, it's being with your friends, it's being a good teammate. Like there's so many little things that go into it. And I'm wondering, with putting your coaching hat on, like how do you look for those opportunities? Like do you change the warm-up game every once in a while? Do you make sure that there's a score on certain drills? Like how do you as a coach try to make drills fun? And then other than working hard, is there anything that you would encourage an athlete to do?
Yeah, so I try to change up my warm-up games quite often, and I'm always on the hunt for new warm-up games. So I'm constantly watching the Germans and Swiss and other teams and their kind of like warm-up technical games. Yeah, so that's kind of one way I like to keep things fun, and then adding score and making it really difficult to win a drill, and just seeing that kind of like drive from athletes of, okay, can we actually do this? Is this possible for us? So adding score definitely helps. And then just kind of reading the room. Like there's definitely times in our practices where, the entire practice is passing focused, and that's just not working out for one day, and it is what it is. So you change up the drill and you're like, you know what, we're just going to compete back row threes. See what happens, get you guys out of your heads. Let's just get you guys competing and see what happens. So yeah, I think that there's definitely ways that you can kind of keep things energetic and keep things fun. But again, it's just knowing your team and what that looks like, what fun looks like for each of them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Here's a great question from Roman, because I can definitely relate to this. So what was/is the biggest challenge for you transitioning from a player to a coach? Because I'll admit, so the reason why I fell in love with coaching is because it was going to take me to a level where playing didn't. Like I was one of those kids who I wasn't going to play at post-secondary, but I loved sports so much that I wanted to get into coaching and I wanted to compete that way. So with you being a high achiever in both, what are you finding challenging coming from a player to a coach?
Sometimes as a player, for me, I'm able to just kind of like do it. Like someone will be like, oh, well, how do you teach this specific thing in blocking? And I'm like, I don't know. I just do it. Like, I don't know how to put it into words and articulate it. So it's kind of breaking things down and being more analytical. That's the hardest part, because not every good athlete is a good coach, and not every good coach is a good athlete. So I think those two are very, very separate. They can be the same, but most of the time they're not. So it's me kind of taking my player hat off. And another hard part for me is, I relate so well to the athletes because I'm still playing. So it's hard for me sometimes to put that like authority cap on and be like, hey guys, no, like I'm your coach, when I actually just want to be like best friends with everybody and like really help them develop and kind of play with them, when I need to realize like, no, I'm in a coaching role. So that for me is really difficult. But yeah, the articulating certain things that come naturally to me has been a struggle for sure. I definitely have gotten better at it, but there's a lot of things that I don't know. I am not a very good setter coach. So I outsource it and I try to learn. I go to clinics or I talk to other setters about, things that they do with their athletes. I'm not the kind of coach that if I don't know, will tell my athletes the wrong thing. I don't believe in that, because then someone else is just going to have to uncoach them or unteach them something. So that for me has also been something that I've been working on.
Yeah, definitely. I think it just builds more trust that you're willing to say, I have a growth mindset and I don't know right now, but I'm going to go ask. I'm going to go email my friend or Facebook somebody and say, hey, like, what do you do in these situations? Versus, I think if you lie to an athlete and then it doesn't work for them, like what did we just learn there? Like you don't gain anything, right? So,
right.
Awesome. Couple more questions coming through. So what would you like to see in a player as a coach? Like, how would you engage university schools through volleyball? So when you're looking through your coach's hat again, or your coach's eyes, what do
Yeah.
you find appealing in a player?
Somebody who doesn't give up, somebody who's supportive. So a lot of the times, if you're looking to go play post-secondary, if you're looking, to move wherever, a lot of the things that coaches look at are stuff off of the ball. So they'll ask for, instead of highlight film, they'll ask for a full game to watch what you do off the ball. What's your head position look like? Are you down in the dumps? Or are you, eyes up looking at your teammates type thing? Because again, obviously the skill level needs to be decent so that, you are coachable at that next level, but any coach can coach you any skills or any system that they want. They can't teach you how to work hard. They can't teach you how to be a good teammate and all those kind of other intangibles. So for me, it would just be like the person that doesn't give up on balls, even if it's in the rafters or if they're in the bleachers, somebody is chasing that ball no matter what. Because then it just shows to their teammates that they care and that they're willing to work hard. So that for me would be a huge one.
Yeah, definitely. Just having coaches on Passin Dimes, I can confirm that a lot of university coaches and college coaches have never seen a bad highlight tape, right? When they have interest in you, they're going to email you for a full match. How do you respond when you make a mistake? How do you respond when your teammate makes a mistake? Like they don't want to overlook those things, right? It's one thing to say, oh, she's such a good server, she's such a good passer. How do you respond when your team's not playing well? And do you take leadership or do you pass blame, right? So those are things that definitely pop up on tape that coaches want to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Another question here. So as a club and collegiate athlete, what attributes make up your favorite teammate? So what were certain things that you found were really helpful for a teammate? And did that change throughout the levels? Like when you're looking for a pro international, like beach partner, do you find that you're looking for different characteristics than when you look back and say, this club person was my favorite teammate because she did this? Like what are certain things you look for in your teammates?
Yeah, so that's definitely changed, I think, over the years. I think when I was younger, I was looking for teammates who were supportive and always like, hey, dude, you got it, like next one, or, that they were constantly vocal and I knew that I had support. People that kept things light and fun, but still competitive. So that for me is kind of what I looked for when I was playing club volleyball. And I found success in that with, the teammates that I played with, who are all super successful now, might I add. But now that I've, gone to the beach side and now that I've matured a little bit more, I actually just need somebody who shows up and makes plays. I don't need you to talk to me in between points. I don't need you to say, you got it. I don't need any of those kind of like filler things, because for me, I don't fill silence with negativity, which a lot of people do. As soon as the court goes silent, a lot of people will just think, oh, that person's mad at me or they don't like me right now or whatever it is. I don't make those assumptions anymore. I just need someone to make a block, get an ace, make a dig, transition a ball. For me, it's the more volleyball stuff that I feel supported in, especially if I'm not performing well. So my take on teammates has kind of shifted in terms of what I need now that I'm older.
Awesome. We'll give people just a last chance to put any questions they have for you, but just to follow up on that one, because you're so self-reliant at the pro level and you really want somebody to take care of themselves, I'm curious, has it ever reached a point where the Taylors just flat out ask for help or you've asked for help? Like, is there opportunities where, you need to admit, man, I'm in the tank right now. Can you help take the seam or can you protect my line or like whatever the little details are? Like, has it ever come to a point where one of you needs to be vulnerable, even though you're like the gladiator in battle? Like, what do those situations look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's happened a lot. And it started when I was in college, actually at USC, where we would, our kind of like mental sports psych, she suggested that we yell out our feelings when we started to feel frustrated or angry or any sort of like crazy negative emotion. Because frustration is normal in practices, right? Like if you're an athlete who is used to succeeding and you're challenging yourself, you're going to fail, and failure is frustrating. So I came to a point where I was the only one doing it, but I would yell at the top of my lungs, like, I'm frustrated. And it became funny. It became comedic that I was no longer frustrated. So I think that was really helpful. But then in terms of like my partnership with Taylor, there's been so many times where I've been like, hey, dude, I'm struggling on this. Can you take the seam passing? Like, can you go on 2 on this? Or can we switch up? Can I defend? Can you block? Like, go for your serve. I'm going to make sure mine's in type thing. So not being the gladiator all the time, because you can't be, and that your teammates are there to support you. It's not supposed to be like the Taylor show, the Sophie show. It's supposed to be the team show. So knowing that your teammates are there to help you is always a really reassuring thing to know that you don't have to do it by yourself and that you shouldn't have to do it by yourself, which is something that I learned very late in the game. I always thought that I had to do it by myself, score 25 points in indoor, be the all-star, do this, this, and this, when, being a good teammate is also a stat in itself. So, and asking for help is really important.
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing because we're so competitive and we want to be elite and we do these things where I think we forget that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I'm going to try this skill tonight and I'm going to fail at it a bunch, but I'm going to get better at it. Like, I'm not there yet, right? And hearing you do that in games is even more impressive, right? Because that's when things are at their highest stakes, and finding those opportunities is just great to hear and a great lesson for everybody. So just while we're giving everybody just a last chance in case there's any other questions, do you have any final comments? I want to thank you for taking the time to do this and thank everybody for showing up. I definitely learned a lot. Hopefully they got a lot out of this too, but just a last few comments from you, and thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just in terms of like athletes and coaches right now, like I know we're in a very frustrating time with things kind of being dangled in our face, whether or not we'll be able to train again, be inside or be not. You can always do something is what I'll say. Like, COVID obviously sucks. I wish that we could all be in a gym together. That would be ideal, but we're all in the same boat. And there's going to be two people that come out of this: people who got worse and people who worked on themselves and got better. So you can choose which one you want to be, but there are no excuses. You can't use COVID as an excuse because everyone's in the same boat right now. You can always be watching film. You can do S&C. You can talk to people like myself or Josh. Everyone is here to help and support you guys. So do everything in your power to be the one that's getting better. Yeah, that's what I would say. Awesome. Yeah, I think we'll call it there. I want to thank Titans for including me. I think this is awesome. I'm glad to be a part of it and glad that I could hear you speak and get to ask my own questions. That was really exciting for me. So thanks to Blair and David and everybody else who's a part of it. I think you guys are doing a great job, and it's great to be included in this. And yeah, best of luck the rest of the way. I hope to see you guys in the gym hopefully very, very soon. Yeah. Thanks guys for having me out. Thanks so much, Josh. This was awesome. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. We'll cut it short there, guys, but thanks for attending, and hopefully see you guys on the next one. This is fun. Yeah, exactly. All right. Take care, everybody.